to the actual show. So take your time, though, boss. Take your time. What's going on, Dre? How you feeling tonight, boss? I can't call it. Bruh, just know. I came into the same predicament earlier. Hold on, let me go ahead and I came into the same predicament earlier because I'm sitting here like, bruh, it's 5 o'clock, 5:30. I realized it was raining, it's about to storm, and I was like, oh shit, I ain't taking my dog out since 7 o'clock this morning. But I mean, luckily for me, you know what I'm saying, it actually, the sun started coming out just like about like half an hour ago, and it stopped raining, so I was able to take her out. But that was crazy. Like, I ain't need her using the bathroom in the house, man.
Yeah, they'll get destructive, man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Take them out.
For sure. Oh my goodness.
Speaking of dogs.
All good, all good.
It's somebody's dog.
Mm-hmm.
Who let the dogs out?
Right.
They heard that conversation.
But yeah, while we get ready for our guests, right? I want to welcome everybody back who's tuning in live to the ToD Podcast. We do have Chris Russell joining us shortly, and matter of fact, there he go right here. I want to make sure that Chris is able to hear. You all set over there, boss man?
Wait, say that again.
Oh no, I was just making sure you was all set, man, because I had to make sure. Yes, sir, Disco. What's going on, Disco? Yes, we do have the great Chris Russell, man. I just had to make sure I gave you this proper introduction, right? Because before I just want to pay it forward before we get started. In this journalism sports field that I've been a part of for XYZ, man, I really wanted to have you on, and you were one of the first people I reached out to when I started this, because you were probably the best boss that I've ever had in this thing, only because, like, for well, actually not only, but for a lot of reasons. You always kept things above me. You were always transparent in terms of what you could or could not do. And truth be told, when you're starting this stuff, I think when we started, I was 4 years in. So when you started, all you wanted somebody to just keep it honest with you. And a lot of people like have their interpretations of people in the media world, people that they don't know from a can of paint. They only see you on social media, but they don't realize how much of a different person or different perception they can have if they simply talk to you. And you gave me that opportunity to talk to you via email. We chatted up, got on the phone, talked, all that good stuff, talked throughout the year. And I can say you're probably one of the better people out there. So I'm definitely appreciative for having you on the show today. And Chris, how are you doing today, and how are you feeling?
Yeah, let me just say, I mean, I appreciate the kind words, but you know, that was all you, and you did it, you know, phenomenal work. And like, I hope Washington football fans and NFL fans, you know, realize, you know, like what you're capable of and what you're all about. You know, I always appreciate your honesty with me, and you know, I mean, I'm more than happy to, you know, do whatever I can to help out anybody that's a good person and that's trying hard. And you know, some of the stuff that, you know, you helped me with, you know, over at SI, and I wish things were different. I wish the business was, you know, more stable. You know, unfortunately, it didn't work out long term, but you know, like that wasn't because of a result of a lack of effort. I can tell you that much, you know. And I remember one conversation, Jay, you and I had, I was driving like in Virginia somewhere, like down to the Outer Banks or something. And we talked for like an hour and a half. And, you know, I mean, I would just say this, both of us have big visions and big dreams, and we just, you know, just keep working at it. And, you know, AJ knows, I mean, you know, like, you know, you just got to keep like grinding away in this business, and eventually you kind of, you know, hopefully step into something and create an opportunity for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to see people recognize that, and recognize that within each other, because you are probably, like I said, you're probably the busiest, we've said it 1,000 times, but the busiest sports journalist on the East Coast, basically. You got 1,000 things going on, and you just finished your show. Matter of fact, you can hear Chris on the Team 980 Mondays through Friday, I believe 3 to 7 p.m. and also on the Locked On Washington Football Talk podcast on all podcast platforms. But you are probably the busiest person on the East Coast in terms of sports journalism. So I do appreciate you recognizing that. And obviously, you know, we got the guys here, AJ and Dre. The whole gang is here tonight, man, and we're here to talk some Washington football draft, man. So if y'all are ready to get to it, you know what I'm saying, we could go ahead and get that started.
No, I appreciate it. I'm here for whatever you guys want to talk about. So I appreciate you guys having me.
For sure. For sure. So Disco, if you got anything that you want to ask the fellas, if you want to ask Chris Russell, you know, let us know. We'll get that relayed ASAP. But Chris, man, the floor is yours, right quick, right? What is your overall impressions on the weekend that was for the Washington football team, just in general? What was your impressions on the approach that they took for the draft?
Yeah, so, I mean, the way I look at it is, and I think this is okay. Maybe this is being too hard, and maybe I should be easier or softer or whatever.
100% you. Be 100% you, man. That's what this floor is for.
Well, I mean, I think they had a solid draft. I think they had a B. You know, like that's what I graded them. I think it's very easy to look at, you know, a bunch of different things here that we'll break down. And, you know, I would say this: there were some parts of the draft class that I really, really liked. I think when you look at the third round pick specifically, for me, I love Benjamin St-Juste. I liked him out of the Senior Bowl. I love his length. I love his athleticism. I love his quick feet. I think they desperately needed another corner to go along with Kendall Fuller and to go along with William Jackson III, because I'm not sure what else they really have other than a. You know, I mean, Jimmy Moreland obviously is part of that, you know, but is Jimmy better in the slot? Is Jimmy better on the outside? I mean, I don't know if we still know the answer to that. And is he a long-term starter? You know, probably not. I don't know. So to me, St-Juste and I talked to Ron Rivera on Monday on my radio show, and I brought up the name Richard Sherman. And I said, you know, what about Cam Chancellor? And, you know, we all kind of get this vision in our head of a guy that looks like another guy, right? Or fits a prototype. And, you know, I was expecting Ron to basically shoot that down. And he's like, no, he's like, you know, I see not only Richard Sherman, he's like, but I also see James Bradbury. I also see Josh Norman in terms of some of the traits that he's got, some of the length, some of the physicality, some of the feistiness, you know, the ability in some cases, like specifically Bradbury, to stick on somebody's hip. So to me, like, I really, really like that pick. That's my favorite pick probably of the draft. And Dyami Brown, you know, I wasn't like as oh my gosh, they've got to get that kid as I was a guy like St-Juste. But, you know, you look, I forget the number. I mean, I think he had like the most 50-plus yard, you know, passing plays last year in the country. I think that's the number. I could be wrong on that, but something like that. And you look at that offense and how productive it was at North Carolina. And when people start saying, well, hey, he could be, as a receiver, what Terry McLaurin is, and the type of receiver Terry McLaurin is, good route runner, able to catch contested balls, you know, a deep threat, but not afraid to go over the middle, that type of thing. To me, if you can get some of that, all of that, most of that, you know, then Washington hit a grand slam in the third round. And then we can talk about the other rounds. I mean, you know, everything is subject to obviously staying healthy and these guys delivering on their goods. Like, I'm not sure Cosme's going to be a stud, but I like him better at 51 than I liked him at 19. Jamin Davis, I really hope and I believe and I think that he can be a stud, but I don't know if I feel that like 100% of my bones right now. I have to almost see it before I absolutely believe it. But I'm a lot closer than I was last week at this time on Jamin Davis. I can tell you that.
So over the, what is it? It's Tuesday. So we're talking like the past couple of days. You hear all these opinions of or narrative that are trying to be shaped in terms of the mentality or makeup that Ron is trying to build. And I'm not here disagreeing or agreeing with anyone, but there's various opinions out there. Chris, for you, and what you saw this weekend with Washington. You spoke on a few players, but from a collective standpoint, even the undrafted free agent and Jared Patterson, what is Ron trying to build, in your opinion, in terms of the makeup of this team, and how did he get closer to accomplishing his goal throughout after the weekend has occurred?
So it's interesting because, I mean, Ron always talks about culture, and almost too much, right? But when he's talking about culture, it's not just being a nice guy. It's about loving football. It's about having a burning passion to do all the little things that are important to making a good or talented professional football player very good or great, right? Like there's a difference, right? There's just like a border, or there's a line that, it's different for everyone, and it kind of just depends on where it is for the individual. And, I hate to use this example, but it's, for recency effect. Dwayne Haskins, super talented guy, flaws, but he didn't work hard enough. Like he thought he was working really hard, but he didn't work hard enough in two different coaching staff and personnel staff's opinion. So all I can do is take what they're saying, and not just one group, two groups, and immediately with Ron, and kind of like look at that and say, okay, listen, if they all feel that he's not working hard, then maybe he's not working hard. So they're going to focus more on guys that have impeccable work ethic, I guess, qualities. And that's what, like Jamin Davis, everyone that I've talked to about him, and I'm going to talk to his head coach later on this week, but, Greg Minuski was on the Team 980 on Monday morning with Kevin Sheehan. He talked about that. Ron talked about that. Other players that I know that know of him have talked about that. He's talked about that. He lives like this slogan about having $1 million. I forgot what the exact slogan is, but you can't have like $1 million dream with like a bargain basement work ethic. I mean, to me, that tells me that dude understands you can be talented and you can be an athletic freak and you can run sideline to sideline. You can be versatile. But if you don't work to get better, if you don't work every day to get better in some little way, you're not going to make it for long in this league. Maybe you'll get by for a couple of years, but eventually it's going to be exposed. And I think Ron really is looking for guys that, as much as they play football because they're good at it, they play football because they love it. That's what he's looking for.
And is it? I feel like now I'm not even about to put words in anybody's mouths or make assumptions or anything. So with that being said, is there a possible, like, because I feel like a lot of people in the NFL, or I'll just put it this way, in your experience, right? Because you've been covering the NFL for a long time. In your experience, how often are you coming across players where you hear they just aren't working hard enough? Because, I mean, obviously, like you said, he wants that work ethic that Jamin presumably has, or that he's heard that he has. Obviously, he's going to be working with him more exclusively now for the next 4 years at least. But how often are you coming across that? Because, I mean, it's a really good story and it's a really good narrative to build. I just want to make sure that, that culture, it's not just like, I don't want it to be out there and fluff for people that's trying to hear it. Does that make sense? I wanted to make sure that this is something that's really like a true emphasis with these guys, because, I mean, obviously it's a team building thing and the culture that you're trying to build, but sometimes when people can say things in terms of on the coaching perspective, you just don't want it to be something where it's like, oh, that's what they want to hear. But this is what we really are looking for. Is that making sense to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a very tricky thing, right? To judge somebody and how hard they work. It's not something that, I take a lot of joy in. But I'll give you, just a bunch of different examples. I mentioned Dwayne, right? There have been guys that I've covered that had, 1/10 of the talent of some of these guys, but they lasted longer because they did all the little check the box things right. They studied, they studied film, hard. And they were like Logan Paulson is a perfect example. Okay, he was an undrafted dude out of UCLA. Mike Shanahan, seventh, again, undrafted, so he didn't even go like in the seventh round. And he just walks in the door and he just worked harder than almost everybody that I know, and he turned an undrafted, tight end into a 10-year NFL career. Sure, he bounced around, and no, he wasn't the best pass catcher or athlete or whatever, but he was good enough at a bunch of different things: special teams, blocking, catching, being a teammate, helping out other teammates, culture, all of that stuff. I'll give you another example. When I first got on the beat, Lorenzo Alexander and Kedrick Golston were two guys that, that I had and still do tremendous respect for and admiration. Those two guys, one was a sixth round pick and one was undrafted, turned themselves into, in Zoe's case, a Pro Bowl linebacker. Right? And a Pro Bowl MVP, and had a long career, 11, 12 years or whatever it was, and almost won a Super Bowl. And then Kedrick Golston wasn't as fortunate in terms of playoff success, but he turned a sixth round pick into an 11-year career, and now he's doing a coaching fellowship at Virginia Tech. Two dudes that maxed out every ounce of their talent by working so hard and doing all the little things right. And I mentioned Logan Paulson. I mean, there's other guys, like a guy like Darrell Young, and I know I'm kind of dating back a little bit, but I'm trying to use examples that fans might. DY came in here as a linebacker. DY came in as a linebacker and converted himself, along with the Shanahans, into a fullback. And damned if he wasn't pretty damn productive when he was healthy and when he was right and when he was in that system. Now, Jay Gruden didn't really want him, so it kind of ended after that. But in the Shanahan system, he was not as good as Kyle Juszczyk is in San Francisco, but he was a pretty good example of a kid who, again, was an undrafted kid out of Villanova who turned himself into something. And now he works for the NFL, and he has been working for the NFL. So, we just look at different examples across the last, 10 or 11 years or whatever, and not even guys that are necessarily on this team, because it's kind of hard right now to gauge exactly who's doing what, because we're not at the facility. COVID has obviously robbed us of some of the inside access. So I try and lean back on, guys that I've covered and guys that I've witnessed. And just to kind of bring this full circle, like a guy like Robert, Robert Griffin III, he worked his ass off in the weight room, but where coaches had a problem and teammates had a problem was what he wasn't doing in the film room and in the meetings. And that was a problem for a lot of people, whether that's fair, unfair or not. I mean, I can only tell you what a lot of people told me. So, you have to kind of like at least accept it, right? And think that that's, now maybe he was different in Baltimore, and I'm sure he was, and he helped out Lamar and so on and so forth. But that was the knock against him. So some guys have the knock, some guys don't. Some guys maybe get more of a leash and more credit than maybe their athletic talents deserve. I don't know. All I know is if you have the athletic talent and if you have the work ethic, you're going to be maybe not a Hall of Famer, but you're going to be a several-time, Pro Bowler, All-Pro, whatever it might be, and you're going to put yourself in a position to be one of the best at your position in your era if you can combine the talent and the work ethic.
I think that's. Yeah. I was just going to mention right quick. I think that's really important, and I wanted to try and get your opinion on that, because Ron said in his presser, or to this extent, not verbatim, but he said in his presser in his intro, like, look, you guys do what I'm asking y'all to do. This will work. Either whether if I make the mistake, that's going to be on me. It's always going to be 100% on me. But you guys do the work. You guys work hard, do what I say, and this thing will work itself out. And I think that's important when you're talking about the hard work on the player side and making sure that these guys are doing what they have to do in both the film and weight room, and making sure that they're always on top of their game, because Ron is going to make sure from a culture and from a leadership standpoint that these guys are where they need to be, and within whatever direction that Ron wants to take them, that they are ready and they are willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely agree with everything Chris said. He touched on some really good guys with Golston, Zoe, DY, things of that nature. I mean, it's like you got to think the top athletes, such as RG3 or Michael Vick or whoever of the world. Sometimes that elite talent, they feel like they can skip the in class from work, you know. And it's just as important as doing the classwork and then also, you know, being able to produce on the field. But it's like when you get to the NFL, you have so many moving parts. Now you're a multimillionaire. You're you're the cash cow of your whole family. And then on top of that, you don't know how to manage those things, those relationships. And you've just been getting away with being fastest guy on the team, being fastest guy on the field, strongest guy on the field, whatever. And, you know, you're like, damn, I'd have made it this far with doing that and working towards not really doing anything else. I've been stuck in this habit, this routine. You now get to the league, and if someone doesn't wake you up and you get put in the wrong situation where you don't have a leadership presence, you know, let's say RG3, for example, you come into a quarterback room, who was a veteran quarterback there to really guide him his rookie year? He's literally kind of damn near competing with Kirk Cousins. So it just doesn't make for a good situation for someone to even be able to step up and say, hey, man, you really need to get in this film room and work on your craft. And it just really depends on your situation you get drafted into, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you know, it's a good point, AJ. I mean, you know, like I can't remember when Robert was drafted. I can't remember how long. I think Rex Grossman was around for that rookie year, but maybe didn't play. I can't remember the whole deal or if he left.
It was either Rex or
somebody
Colt McCoy, one of them. It was either Rex or Colt that was around.
I think they were only keeping two guys around then.
McCoy didn't come in until Gruden, but I think Rex was around that first year, but they kept him around because they had two rookie quarterbacks in Cousins and Griffin. But Rex didn't play, so I think he was like inactive every week. But he was around as kind of like a veteran presence, right? And listen, you know, look, there's going to be players that are coaches' favorites, right? And coaches are always going to favor the guys that, you know, again, basically their knuckles are bare from watching so much film, you know, and from grinding so hard and from doing all the little things because that's what coaches do. So maybe that's fair or unfair. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's just the society that we live in and the world that we live in. But, you know, I think one thing about Ron, just to turn it back to Ron, is, you know, whether you're a young player or an old player, whether you're a really talented player or a grinder, I think Ron, you know, is so transparent and so, you know, honest with people for the most part that, you know, like if you're not hearing the message from Ron, you're hearing what you probably want to hear as opposed to what he's saying, if that makes sense. And I think that was, you know, partially the problem with Dwayne, you know, and I think that, you know, anybody that they give an opportunity to, and they specifically tell, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. If you don't do it, right, they're going to give you that opportunity. They're going to give you that rope. But if you don't do it, then they're going to not be able to trust you, and then they're going to turn their back on you. And that's just the way it is, right? And if you have talent and if you get away with freelancing and doing things and successful, like you said, Jamal, like Ron said, hey, do it our way. And if it doesn't work, we'll take the blame. But if you do it your way and it doesn't work, then you're going to hang yourself out to dry. Now, there's somewhere in between, like if you're talented enough to cover up some blemishes and to freelance a little bit, maybe you can get away with it for a little while, but eventually it's going to catch up to you. And I don't know about you guys. I would just, like, if I'm a player coming into this building, I would just be like, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Absolutely.
Whatever you say, Sarah. You know, I mean, that's just what I would do because that guy is going to shoot straight as straight as can be. I mean, he's not perfect. He's, you know, I'm not trying to make him out to be perfect, but he's going to shoot straight as can be. And there's not really any that I can ascertain, any kind of like divided not polarizations, but divided like messages coming from the coaching staff or from different sides of the building, and I mean,
hey Chris, I won't lie. I felt like there was something in the beginning of the season. Even me, I was kind of confused. I'm like, what is Ron doing here? I'm really lost by the Adrian Peterson release a week before season opener. I was confused with the Dwayne Haskins situation. I was confused with the quarterback competition earlier. I was just confused in general, honestly. Like, I didn't really understand what was going on. And from a fan standpoint, I was like, I think we might have got Ron Rivera over the hill, like, I think his time is done. I don't know if maybe that was because medical.
It's a point that you bring up, right? I mean, listen, I was confused by letting go of Adrian Peterson too. I think they screwed up that move. I think they believed too much in Bryce Love, and he could never get on the field, right? So, I mean, Ron has never publicly admitted to a mistake, but I'm sure if you gave him a little truth serum, he would. As far as like the quarterback competition, I think he said, hey, look, I made a mistake. I had to find out like what I had in Dwayne. I had my doubts. I had my reservations. I needed to find out as quickly as I could. No preseason, no OTAs, so on and so forth. Where I think they really screwed up, and Ron has talked about this, and I said this from the get-go, they screwed up in having a first-time a head coach serve as the general manager, the president, the head of everything, the head of football operations, all of that stuff. And, oh, by the way, then you come up after the most insane offseason of all time, and then you come down with cancer, And I think that really kind of crystallized what we have this offseason, which is the addition of Mayhew and Hurney. And then even further, guys like Eric Stokes, who were brought in after Alex Santos was fired, and Chris Polian, and guys of that ilk, because Ron realized how overwhelmed he was and how in over his head he was. And, privately, I know he was talking to, Sean McDermott, Brandon and Brandon Beane up in Buffalo on an almost everyday basis, and Marty Hurney down in Carolina, because he needed a lot of help. And so I think now maybe that ship has kind of stabilized, and instead of being kind of the Titanic, I think it's kind of stabilized, and I would look for more common sense type decisions, and hopefully not rash decisions, which I do definitely agree with you that they made some of, especially early in the year.
So, Chris, I'll ask you this. Now that we talk about decisions, how do you feel about Washington not going after a quarterback in the first round? And what do you also think about the quarterback situation right now with Heineke, Kyle Allen, and Ryan Fitzpatrick being on the roster as your quarterbacks at the moment?
Right. So I understand that the quarterback of the future is not here. I mean, I think everybody should understand that. I think everybody should look at Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke as fringe starters and good backups. I don't think they should be looked upon as anything more than that. And if they turn out into something better than that, then I guess we'll all just eat it, right? But that's okay. Ryan Fitzpatrick, to me, is a definite, bona fide, legitimate starter, even though he has had his ups and downs in his career, obviously, which led to 9 different teams and no playoffs and all that. That doesn't mean that he's not a legitimate starter. I truly believe he is. Now, does that mean that he's not going to throw picks? Of course he is. He's going to take some chances. He's going to drive you crazy. But I think he's a legitimate starting quarterback. Is he top 15? Probably not. But, the hope is that you have a dominant defense and you have enough talent around him that he doesn't have to zip so many balls into tight windows and so on and so forth. And you hope that the trend in his career, which is less interceptions as his career has gone along, you hope that continues, in this new system. So I would say this. To me, I think they're fine this year. I wouldn't say they're great this year. I wouldn't say they're very good this year. I think they're fine to potentially good at quarterback because of the 3 different options. Next year, obviously, again, we have to see what happens with Fitzpatrick and all three of them, obviously. I definitely think they'll be in the quarterback market, probably most likely again. As far as trading up for Mac Jones, no thanks. As far as trading up for Justin Fields, I wouldn't have done it. I would have been tempted if Trey Lance had fallen like Justin Fields did. I would have been tempted to do that more than Justin Fields. And some people might say, well, that's crazy. Why would you do that? Justin Fields has got more experience. Maybe it's recency bias. I don't know. Maybe it's who I saw more, but I saw more flaws in Justin Fields than I did necessarily in Trey Lance. And what I mean by that is when I saw him tear apart Clemson, sure, everybody saw that. But I also saw him get, I guess, stuffed, for lack of a better term, against teams like Indiana, Northwestern, and Alabama, right? So, for me, I don't know if Justin Fields is going to be a stud. And for me to make a trade up that would have required a first-round pick next year and more, I need as close to a sure thing as a stud as I can get. I'm not sure if Trey Lance is that guy either. I probably wouldn't have made that trade if I was San Francisco. I certainly thought Washington was going to be interested in moving up, but I don't think anybody thought they would be able to get from 19 to 4 or 5 or whatever. But to me, if you're asking me am I happy that they were patient? Yes, I'm happy that they were patient, because then they were able to fill all their needs and not be reckless. Now, next year, you can be a little bit more aggressive.
Now, Chris, first and foremost, appreciate all the new people checking in. If you guys got any questions for Chris Russell, let us know. Disco got a couple comments, by the way, fellas, mentioning when we were talking about the work ethic part. He mentioned anytime a player gets cut and still speaks highly of the coach, you're probably doing something right. And he's mentioning specifically Jeff Bedett, who got cut and spoke very highly of Ron Rivera. And then his comment on Adrian Peterson. Now I'm gonna disagree with you here, Disco. But he said Peterson wasn't a good fit. He was just a different kind of runner and a non-threat in a passing game and a volume runner. I still think he could have worked out here, but
what was Peyton Barber?
Yeah, I'm about to say we can revisit that Disco at a later time, right? But Chris, so my question is, right? Because we're still on the quarterback question. Does them really not drafting a quarterback in the draft, not necessarily first round, not necessarily trading up, none of that, just in general, the draft, does that necessarily mean that they're being content with Fitz, or, in your opinion, or did the right opportunity just not present itself for them? And the reason why I asked that is because, remember, day 2, if not day 3, I can't remember, but there was a quick selection of quarterbacks, like back to back to back. And obviously, because of that, we'll never know. And Ron will never tell anybody, and neither will Martin Mayhew or Marty Herney. None of them, they will never tell us that we wanted somebody. They just got taken so quick. It was impossible for us to get them. So does it mean that they're content with Fitz, or the right opportunity just did not present themselves to them?
It's a good question, Jay. I think, I think they were more, I think they were, in terms of the first round, they definitely did not want to surrender the compensation and assets. I think they had a desire, and I think it would have been Fields more than Mac Jones. I think they had a desire to move up, but they just couldn't justify the means. And Ron told me on Monday, and Pete Medhurst on our show, look, we had all these needs. We spelled out all these needs. It was hard to be patient. We talked about it. We turned over every stone. We thought the price was too much, all of that. So I would say this. I think they're happy with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but they know that it's a short-term answer or a short-term stopgap. And they also know it could go wrong, right? Just like it could go right, and they could bring back Ryan Fitzpatrick for another year. You just don't know, right? We have all these questions, and we don't have all the answers. Guess what? People think they have all the answers. No, they don't. They don't have all the answers either. So I think Ron is and his staff is kind of left holding the bag, almost saying, hey, look, if this goes the way we're hoping for it to, then, boy, that'll look great that we didn't panic and gamble. But if it doesn't, then we know we're going to be subject to criticism, and we know we're going to have to be more aggressive and more bold next offseason. The problem with being more aggressive and bold next offseason is, you look around and you got the USC kid, you got the North Carolina kid. You don't have right now, as many different options as presented itself this year. But, again, this year, at this point last year, who knew about Zach Wilson, right?
Yep.
Who knew that Mac Jones was going to be as good as he turned out to be at Alabama, replacing Tua? So, I mean, things change. Things will always change in this league. And I think right now they're okay and they're satisfied and they're hopeful. But I don't think they're under any illusion that they've got this quarterback situation settled. I think they're more like, hey, you know what? Let's fill out the rest of the roster here and address all of these needs, and then we can be more aggressive, whether it be for a veteran quarterback, a Russell Wilson, an Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, whoever, next offseason, as opposed to, or in the draft, as opposed to this offseason.
So, Chris, let me ask you this. You mentioned Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, and Rodgers, right? With everything that developed last week, we already knew there was rumblings, with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers front office. With everything transpiring on draft day, last Thursday, where do you stand on Watson? Of course, you cover the team. You speak to Ron Rivera all the time. Why wait until the offseason of 2022 when you possibly could make that move now with your young roster, young talented roster at that? You have yet to have to pay Terry McLaurin, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, these big extensions. What would you do if you could make the play and you could call the play? Would you pursue Aaron Rodgers further, see what's going on with the Packers, possibly move 3 first-round picks, or would you wait until 2022 where every team, agent, also teams that are trying to move their quarterbacks, whether it be the Aaron Rodgers, the Russell Wilson, Watson, Matt Ryan, they know that you're going to be desperate for someone because you have fringe starters and a bridge quarterback. What would you do?
I mean, here's what I would do. I would have already called the Green Bay Packers. And even if they hung up on me, at least they know that I'm at least curious and interested in finding out. And again, it takes 2 to tango, right? If the Packers are to be believed that they're not interested at all in trading Aaron Rodgers, just like the Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson, they made it very clear they weren't. Now, that doesn't mean that they never will be. That doesn't mean that you can't keep calling. That doesn't mean anything. It just means that, that's what their public stance is. So I would have pulled just to see, okay, hey, what would it take? Or what, do you want to have a second conversation or what have you? That being said, guys, for me, as great as Aaron Rodgers is, I think he's a little bit of a diva. I think he's a little bit of a pain in the butt. I understand he's the NFL MVP. I understand he would be instantly the best quarterback this franchise has had in a long time. But he's 38 or going 37, going on 38. And I don't know if I could surrender 3 first-round picks, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, whatever the compensation package is. And I would assume it would be a minimum of 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick and maybe more than that, right? I don't know if I can, in my heart of hearts, justify trading all of that plus the salary that you have to then take on in terms of the cap. Maybe he wants an extension. I'm sure he does. He certainly wants one from Green Bay. I would assume he would want one from whatever team is acquiring him. I don't know if I can justify that, even as good as Aaron Rodgers is. So I would call. I would certainly check out. I would monitor. I would have discussions about it. I would attack it lightly, but it would be like kind of, I'll use a boxing analogy, right? It would be like, a boxer that's just jabbing, right? Like you're kind of poking, right? You're not throwing roundhouse rights around, or left hooks. You're just kind of jabbing a little bit. You're just softening up the underbelly and just seeing what happens without being reckless or over aggressive.
Yes, Homer. Welcome to the show, man. Rodgers is still a thing. A lot of people are talking about it. It's quite a few trade proposals, that we may end up talking about. But we're talking about is this all right? So one question from Disco, because this will be the last one before we transition to
That's what
cornerback. But he mentioned he did agree with AJ in terms of Ron's move. He may be going into his third season next year with still a question mark at QB. But he mentioned if you get a rookie quarterback next year, are you then going to ask for that quarterback to take you on a deep playoff run or Super Bowl run? Essentially saying, you kind of are. I wouldn't even want to assume that he's saying you're asking for too much, but is it possible that you can be expecting too much out of a rookie quarterback to take you that far?
Sure, absolutely. But I would also say this: they're not just going to draft a rookie quarterback next year and then surround him with nobody with experience, whether that's Fitzpatrick, whether that's Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke, or whatever the situation might be. They're not going to leave him out to the wolves, right? So, like you look at ideally the way Kansas City did it with Patrick Mahomes is about as good as you can do it, right? They drafted him, they traded up for him, they paid a heavy price for him. They turned out to be right, but then they also didn't ask him to play in a game until week 17, and then he was ready, and who knew he would be as good as he is, but he was ready to go year 2 of his career and ready to obviously take them to an AFC championship game and almost a Super Bowl, and then the next year win a Super Bowl, and then the next year after that lose in a Super Bowl. So, ideally that's how you would draw it up. I think they are more likely next year to try and acquire a veteran quarterback that might be that next 3 to 4 year guy, as opposed to trading up for or mortgaging the future for a young quarterback. It's not supposed to be a great quarterback class. Again, I mentioned the North Carolina kid Howell and Kivas Slovis from USC, but right now that's about it, unless somebody else emerges.
Okay. And Chris, we do thank you for your time. You have been patient with us. We have, I got 2 more questions on my end. And obviously we can go, you know what I'm saying? You've been a busy person today anyway. But this one question, actually, you kind of answered when you spoke on St. Juice. I believe that's his name, St. Just, whatever. I'm trying to work on that last name. It's kind of tricking me. But St. Juice. Okay. So I heard your interview with Rivera, and some of the stuff you already spoke on. You also asked him if you see the Richard Sherman or Cam Chancellor, and he actually concurred with the Sherman part. Do you think that conversation, at least for the short term, puts the conversion to safety or position conversion to an end when it comes to Benjamin? Because there has been talk about him possibly converting, but it seems as if they want him at corner to start things off.
I don't think it's happening anytime soon. I mean, what is soon? I guess it could happen late in the year. I guess it could happen because of injury and because of a lack of depth. But I don't think it's happening by plan anytime soon. They like him as a corner, and they need him as a corner. They're actually deeper at safety if you include Landon Collins still in that mix, along with Curl and Reeves and whatever Apke is and Forrest. And, they could still sign a Trey Boston or somebody like that if they want to. But I think their plan is to have St. Just work as an outside corner. He's not one of the, like Fabian Moreau was better on the outside than the inside, but he could play on the inside, I guess. St. Just is not an inside guy. He's not a slot guy, right? And at 6'2.5", 6'3", you don't necessarily want a guy of that size. But what he can do is play cover 3. What he can do is play press man. What he can do is give you that opportunity to be aggressive when you want, but also to not ask him to chase every receiver around all over the field. Like, you can play man on one side with William Jackson III. You can play, a different type of defense on the other side with St. Just, or you can say, hey, both go in man because you got Kendall Fuller, who you can kick inside in the slot if St. Just develops. So, there's all sorts of different things that you can do now. And I think that's one of the things that they liked about his skill set is not only potentially could he be a safety, but they loved his frame and his quick feet with that frame, meaning he's not slow. He can run, he can turn, he can chop, he can go, and he's got those long arms and the long frame to contest catches and to knock balls away, even if he gets knocked slightly off. So I'd be surprised if you see him at safety unless they are really, really hurting there.
Hey, Chris, quick question. Do you think that the defense philosophy is going to change a little bit? Because when I seen them sign William Jackson from Cincinnati, something that William Jackson does very damn great at is press man coverage.
Yep.
It seems as though, I don't know how to say the young man who got drafted third round's name all the way, but it seems as though they want their corners to play more bump and run.
So I asked Ron about that on Friday night, I think it was, and he wouldn't give away their plans. He said,
okay,
that's why.
So that means we're on the same page.
Yeah, I didn't follow up on Monday about it, but make no mistake about it. You're not just some William Jackson to a $14+ million a year contract and play him.
Man.
I mean, it just makes no sense. So the numbers that I have, they were 62% roughly zone, 38% man. I would expect, I don't know if that gets completely flipped around, but I would say probably more like 50-50 or maybe even slightly favoring more man ultimately than zone this year because, again, William Jackson III, 1. 2, if St. Juste is what they think and hope that he is, yes, he can play zone, and yes, he can play cover 3. Which is what Sherman and Seattle, of course, made so famous. But what people forget about with cover 3 is you can line up on the line of scrimmage and you can be physical with a guy and not just chase him all over the field, right? So they can, again, if they don't feel like putting St. Juste completely on an island, they can play, like a different type of coverage than they do with William Jackson III, but it might look pre-snap like the same coverage based on the alignment. In other words, I think the days of them lining up 10, 12 yards off the line of scrimmage on 3rd and 8, which I know is a big thing for Washington fans that they've always criticized, I don't think you're going to see a ton of that this year. Maybe on 3rd and 15, you back off a little bit, but on 3rd and 8 or less, I think you're going to see these guys right on a receiver's hips, right in their grill, and using their hands, hopefully with good technique, to try and disroute them, or deroute them, I should say, or to try and jam them and to try and slow them down a little bit that way.
All right, so here we go, man. Let's wrap this up with the who, what, when, and why, Chris. So I'll make a statement or ask a question, and it's as simple as you just giving your response, man. You can give a statement or a sentence, but it doesn't have to be something like too far-fetched. It's a simple statement or anything. So I'll start with the who, right? Who of the 2021 additions to the Washington football team? This is free agency. This is draft. Who of the 2021 additions to the Washington football team will be making the most impact this year?
Well, I'm gonna say it'll be. I'll go with the less obvious one, I guess, and I'll say it's Curtis Samuel because of the variety that he presents, slot, outside. You can line him up, of course, as we've all seen as a running back, as he did at Ohio State. He's got great speed. Good work ethic, pretty good size, ability to hurt you long and short, ability to break tackles. To me, I mean, it's easy to say Fitzpatrick. I guess it's less easier to say WJ3. I mean, I think they'll all have an impact, but I guess if I had to pick one because of the versatility and because of the different ways you can use him, jet sweeps and all that stuff, to me, it'll be Curtis Samuel.
All right. What is Washington's most pressing concern following the draft this week?
How about this? They still don't have competition at place kick for Dustin Hopkins. I know they could still use another free safety. I know they could probably use another veteran linebacker. I wrote something for SI.com about all of this that people can go check out, and I gave a bunch of names and different position areas. But one thing that hasn't really gotten any attention since they re-signed Dustin Hopkins to a very short-term deal. It's a 1-year, $2.6 million deal. Is they don't have anybody right now on the 90-man roster. And Ron told us on Monday that they're going to bring in a couple of veterans. He didn't say specifically at what positions, but I'd be surprised if that's not one of the positions that they sign somebody to be a part of the 90-man roster to go into camp to push Hopkins.
Why can Washington be a top 15 offense this year?
Well, besides what I said about Samuel, which I think is obviously, a big addition. And if Adam Humphries can stay healthy, I think for the first time, you don't have all the pressure on Terry McLaurin. Presumably, Logan Thomas is at least a good option in his second year in the system as a pass-catching tight end. So you don't have the major questions that you had about him. I think you're better at the quarterback spot. I also think you're deeper and more talented and more versatile along the defensive line, along the offensive line. So you combine all of that, and I have no idea what to expect out of Patterson, the kid that they've signed from Buffalo. But if he can, be maybe a better version of Peyton Barber, maybe they go that route. Maybe he gives them a little bit more sizzle. Maybe it's just him versus Lamar Miller. I'm not sure how that training camp battle is going to work out, but overall, I think that the offense is better in just about every spot that I'm thinking of, maybe shy of running back. And again, you can make an argument that running back, they can be improved on. So like top 15, it's going to depend on a lot of things and injuries, most notably. But I do think they have the potential to be top 15. But of course, it all depends. Like, if you're top 15 in yards gained, but then you stink in the red zone, that doesn't do you a whole lot of good.
For sure. And lastly, when will Washington be ready to compete for a Super Bowl? You see where your head at on that one?
Jay, I mean, look, I think because of their schedule this year and because that 17th game is at Buffalo and because there's so many questions about, like if this guy happens and this guy, comes together and if they stay healthy here, and I think it might be too rich this year. I would never say like they have no shot, but I would say of making the Super Bowl, I would say, probably no more than a, 5% chance at best. But I would not say no chance, no way. Ideally, if I could draw it up in my mind, you would probably be looking at next year, meaning 2022. But we all know this in this league, right? Everything can change and everything can change rapidly and quickly. And, for the good and for the worse. And we could be having a very different discussion in December and January than we're having right now. But again, I do give them a small chance of, reaching a Super Bowl, winning a Super Bowl. I mean, if I'm giving them 5% maybe to reach a Super Bowl, 2%, 3%, whatever it is, I don't know. I mean, I just refuse to give them no chance. That's what I will tell you. It's not a great chance, but I refuse to give them no chance.
Fair enough, Chris. And again, I know you're a busy man, and I appreciate the time that you gave us tonight. And before we close out, I want to give you the floor because you have a lot of things going on. And in case I missed something, obviously I know you work at SI, but I want to give you that floor so you can go ahead and plug everything that you got going on, boss man.
No, I appreciate it. And as we started this conversation, I mean, somebody, I hope I have the opportunity to give you another opportunity and I value our friendship and what you were able to help me with. And I really appreciate how good you've been to me. And I have never ending respect, for you. And I appreciate you guys having me on. I would say this, SI.com, obviously, watch the football coverage there. Part of, it's mostly run out of Texas, if I'm being honest with you. I'm the only one based here, but yet somehow it's working, is the best I could say.
Yep.
And then most importantly, Washington, the Team 980, Monday through Friday, 3 to 7, Washington Football Flagship Station with Pete Medhurst from, again, 3 to 7. I think, we talk all sports, but obviously a lot of Washington football and a lot of NFL. And, we're lucky enough to sometimes have some really good guests like Jamin Davis the other day, like Ron Rivera the other day, so on and so Doug Williams last week. And then on top of that, let me see. The Locked On Washington Football Team podcast with David Harrison. So we just got done recording that before this.
Oh, my goodness.
I've been talking for 6.5 hours in a row, basically, without taking more than maybe a couple of minutes off. So, but yeah, that's it.
Okay, boss man. Hey, well, you guys know where to find Chris Russell if you're looking for him. He does great work. He has a lot of opinions that's really sharp, for sure. And obviously, again, thanks for your time, Chris. Go ahead and get some rest, big dog. You got another long day ahead of you tomorrow, so I'm sure of it.
I appreciate you.
All right, man.
Take care.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, Drake, where you at, Drake? Talk to me, Drake. Anyway.
Yo, I'm here. What's good?
Hey, nothing much, man. We didn't get to hear from you, man, but obviously for everybody who tuned in live, Chris Russell, let us know how your thoughts on the conversation. Obviously, we had a lot to talk about. He was gracious with his time, so we thank him for that. Dre, and AJ had to leave. I forgot about that part. AJ had to leave, so we will see him next week. But appreciate you, AJ, for hopping on during your time. But yeah, first off, I meant to tell you. I didn't want to talk while Chris was talking, but the only people that hold those mugs that you got is drinking the Earl Grey. They got a little Earl Grey in that mug. You got alcohol you sipping on, my brother?
And we had this conversation the other day with the draft when I had this cup. You asked me what I was drinking, but you was drinking. You was
Bruh.
Like 10 shots in on Thursday night.
Oh my
and
goodness.
I came in with this, and you asked me about 4 times what I was drinking in this cup.
I did. I asked you 4 times, bruh.
I'm fucking with you. It wasn't 4 times.
Hey, I believed it. Let me tell you, it was a wild night, man, and I paid for it. I put it that way. I paid for it the next day. I didn't realize until after I cut off the stream and walked my dog how fucked up I was. So for those who are still listening and those who will be listening, do not ever take a poll or question from Twitter and think that you can just play a game, because they don't give a fuck about you. They don't care. They don't care. Homer, if you still in here, you clearly didn't care about my health either, because you was encouraging me to take 1,000 shots that night, and I did, and y'all had to pay no consequences. I did. I was frustrated.
You said you were paid. You were. No, I hadn't seen you that drunk before. I knew you was done. Like, you was getting it in. But no, bruh. This is a Moscow Mule, ginger beer, Tito's liquor, and some lime juice up in here. So we got the works going on up in here. All
right. Well, look, man. Whenever I think about, if you ever see me on Twitter talking about some drinking games, shut it down. You have the right to say whatever you need to shut it down, but shut that shit down. All right, Dre, just do it.
I caught you too late. I caught you too late. You was did. Like 5 in by the time I got to you.
I was in, man. I was in. All right, so Dre, you have a lot to talk about in the sense of we need to hear your draft opinion, man. So we can go ahead and start from there and just your overall draft assessment for the Washington football team. Appreciate you, Disco. I don't know if you're checking out or not just now, but appreciate you. Chris was definitely good for the fellas. But yeah, what's your overall opinion on the draft, man?
Well, I don't like to get on here and be like, oh, we did so great, this, that, and the third, because you don't know. I mean, you're optimistic as a fan. You like, the choices. You want to give everyone a chance. But overall, I mean, I feel like they had a plan going into this draft. I mean, this is honestly the first draft I've seen in a long time where they attack needs. Normally, we'll go into a draft, we'll draft like 3 or 4 guys at a position we probably didn't even think we needed, whatever. And we'll just justify it saying, okay, we went BPA. But this draft, we knew we went into this draft. We needed linebacker. We needed tight end. We did need another weapon on offense. and we needed secondary help, and we needed a long snapper. Something I never thought we would walk out of the draft doing was drafting a long snapper. They attacked literally every need, except quarterback, of course. I mean, but quarterback is one of those positions you don't want to just to draft and settle on just to settle on. But they literally went after every need. But as far as like the picks, I feel like a guy like Jamin Davis, now, he's got a lot of pressure. I think he has the most pressure on him of any of the draft picks in his draft, because I feel like if Jamin Davis comes out and he's an instant impact guy, he takes this defense to another level, because he brings something, well, allegedly from what we've seen on tape and what people have talked about him doing, his athleticism and everything testing off the charts, he brings something to the table that no one else on that defensive staff does as far as the linebacker position goes. Like, this is something we've needed for a long time. I honestly, Jamal, I can't even tell you the last time we've had a guy that was a pure coverage linebacker like Jamin Davis. Normally the linebackers we get, they're run stuffers or they're guys who can get after the passer. But you're talking about Jamin Davis, his specialty is he has speed and he can cover tight ends. We've been killed by Jason Witten, the slowest tight end in NFL history for years. I mean, he's always open. We had no one that can cover. I don't care who we have a linebacker, what we're doing back. We don't have no one to cover a Jason Witten or a Zach Ertz. We playing, or even going back to the Jeremy Shockey days. I mean, for the Giants. So,
oh my goodness,
this is something I'm excited about. You know, just his potential alone. But again, it's potential, and he's a rookie, so you kind of don't want to put too much on him. But at the same time, he does have that pressure, because you expect Jamin Davis to come in as a starter. You know, I mean, looking at the rest of the linebacking core. And then as Chris Russell was talking about with Benjamin St-Juste, he said that was his favorite pick. That was actually surprising to me. I don't know much about Benjamin St-Juste. He's I mean, I looked at some of his highlights on YouTube, obviously, and heard some things, but he's a big guy. He's, 6'3", 200 pounds. So he's a guy that I expect to come in and, hopefully compete for the third cornerback spot, maybe the fourth cornerback spot. But he's raw, so you don't expect too much out of him. But potentially, he's another guy that's tested athletically off the charts, that if he lives up to his potential, he's a starter one day. And then you got Sam Cosmi, the left tackle in the second round. He's a guy that, again, potential. They talk about this, and he tested, again, athletically off the charts. He's a guy that, for me, and I said this during the draft, I think from what I saw of his test results, his athletic results, he measures up there with Trent Williams athletically, you know.
And I'm not saying 4'8", right? Or 4'7".
He ran a 4'8", and then he has like a 33-inch wingspan, which Trent Williams, I think he had a 34-inch wingspan. So, you know, athletically, he's up there with Trent Williams. And I'm not saying he's Trent Williams or he's on Trent will ever be on Trent Williams level, but if he gets the technique and everything else he needs down correctly, potentially that's what you had in Trent Williams right there on the left hand side. So you came out of this draft with a bunch of guys that it was athletes. It was an athletic draft. I mean, just you can keep going down the line, but it looks good. But we want to give these guys a chance to come in and see if it translates to the NFL level. But I am very optimistic of what we came away with in the draft.
Yeah. So I think actually. Poster, I forgot what day. I would say Sunday. Martin Mayhew spoke on how much better they can be with the addition of this class, right? And his quote was pretty long quote, but I'll try and be quick with it. He was saying he was just talking to his scouts about an hour ago, prior to the actual presser that he was a part of, about an hour ago, and this was one of the best processes that he's been a part of in his time in the NFL from start to finish. Each guys were on top of their responsibilities. Coaches did that standing job. But he also mentioned that he just doesn't know how the players or how good these players can be for about a year or two. Essentially, he felt that everyone that just drafted in the NFL, they think that they have a good draft. We'll find out in a year or two again. But he looked for certain guys that were a right fit here, and that's kind of what they did throughout the process. They must like to work, want to be great football players, and guys that love playing football. They have they believe that they have the opportunity to reach their potential in this league, and do everything to make that happen. Essentially, in a sense, he's very happy, but he's tempering his expectations. My question to you, Dre, and I'm semi-interviewing you because I just want to get your opinion on these things. But my question to you is essentially your expectations for 2021, right? Did it significantly change from pre-draft to post-draft, or are you still in that same range where you were and just staying even-keeled throughout this entire offseason?
Well, yeah, I think I'm gonna stay even keeled right now, and that's just because I don't want to put too much pressure on the rookie guys or put too much expectations on the rookies. I mean, but we do see it every year where rookies come out and they can exceed expectations, and they can be a guy that can transform a team, whether on offense or defense. And that's where I come back to Jamin Davis. Yeah. Now you look at the Washington defense, and you say, okay, they got a defensive line. They had a couple guys back there in secondary. We signed William Jackson in the offseason. We still got Kendall Fuller back there. And Cam Curl, Cam Curl had a hell of a rookie season at safety. Free safeties a little bit. Jeremy Reeves is a guy, I think he did well once he got this opportunity. But the elephant in the room with the defense was the linebackers. And everyone knew. We went back, we watched games, you can go back to the Rams game last year when Sean McVay said that they knew, they looked at film and they looked at the Washington linebackers and they knew they could attack the linebackers. And that's where they killed us. That's where we got gashed. But the Rams weren't the only team to do that. Every time we played a team that knew the weakness was linebackers, that's where we got attacked. Tampa Bay, they did that in the playoffs. They attacked us in the middle of the field all game because they knew we couldn't cover tight ends or just a short passing game. So they want a short pass game and quick release us to depth. That neutralizes that great pass rush that we love to say that we have with Chase Young and Montez Sweat, when you can utilize a quick passing game. And that's where the lack of skill at the linebacker position came in. So that's why I come back to a Jamin Davis and I say, if Jamin Davis is an instant impact guy, then my expectations goes significantly up after this draft. But I don't want to put that pressure on Jamin, even though he's a first round pick. I don't want to put that pressure on Jamin Davis right now to say, oh, he's going to come in and do this, that, and the third already, because I have to see how he transitions to the NFL. I mean, he didn't play that many games in Kentucky. I mean, but he got high accolades. He's a military kid. He's he seems very disciplined, seems very good, but at the same time, you still don't want to put those expectations on him. But if Jamin Davis is a guy that comes in ready to impact the game, then your expectations goes up significantly because he addresses the biggest weakness in the room on that defense at the linebacker position. So all of a sudden, teams like Sean McVay is not looking at you on film and saying, oh, I can beat you easily with my little wide receivers or my little or my big tight ends across the middle of the field. So that changes everything significantly. And like I said, Jamin Davis is the key, I think, of this draft.
I think Jamin is going to be a problem. And Disco, I want to see where you're going with this, Disco, because I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm very interested in what you got to say. But Disco mentioned he actually thinks that Chase Young and Montez Sweat need to take a big next step. So I want to see where your head is at with that one, Disco. But I think Jamin Davis is going to be a problem in a good way, right? And I don't think there's no. What you see with Jamin is what you can expect, and I feel like I can raise my expectations at the linebacker position for this very reason, right? He is an athletic freak. He's very good for everything that you mentioned. The things that stand out and what makes him different than other positions, especially because he's young. He only played just quite a few games. He hasn't really started that many games, but the learning curve on the defensive side of the football is way easier, especially in the trenches too. It's way easier than it is at a leadership or a very cerebral position on offense. Like that, the linebacker versus quarterback thing. Quarterback is probably going to be, especially when you have the lack of experience, it's going to be a little bit more difficult of a transition, especially when you're going to the pro level. Defense, linebacker, not so much. You don't need tons of experience at the linebacker position in order to be successful in the NFL at the next level when you're coming from college and you haven't started 30 plus games or 20 plus games. Like, football and defense is second nature. You're learning principles and run fits and coverage responsibilities. But all of these things is essentially the same thing that you've learned on every single level of football: high school, college, NFL. There's obviously some nuances, some things that I'm not aware of because I wasn't able to play college ball, and clearly I'm not a pro. I'm a pro flag football player, but that doesn't count. You know what I'm saying? I'm always people on the offensive side. I don't play defense. But my point is, you are learning a lot of things that are still somewhat familiar to you, and when you're picking up on something on pro level, it's not going to be as steep as you are if you were a quarterback and things like that. So I think Jamin is going to be the real deal. And truth be told, Dre, I'm not one to tell. I would tell you shouldn't temper or suppress your belief that he is going to be really good. I think he's going to benefit this defense in a major way on day one, to be honest with you.
No, I hope you're right, Jamal. It's just that I've seen it before where you see some of these guys where they call the safe pick, even guys that's been drafted higher than Jamin Davis before. They've had trouble transitioning at the linebacker position. I mean, look at Isaiah Simmons last year. Not to compare Isaiah Simmons to Jamin Davis, because Isaiah Simmons, in my opinion, was more of a tweener than Jamin Davis was. But still, he was a top 10 draft pick. And a lot of people claim that was a safe draft pick. Like a lot of Redskin fans or Washington football fans were claiming this is a guy we should trade back for, and we would have got instant production out of. So I just look at stuff like that. I'm like, everyone's learning curve is a little bit different. But I do have faith that Jamin Davis can come in a little quicker than saying Isaiah Simmons, because, and you look at our defensive line. That's another thing too that you got to look at. It's context with everything. I feel like now playing behind that defensive line of Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Matt Ioannidis, and Montez Sweat, you may have an easier transition alone just playing behind those guys. I mean, you're going to get opportunities. That is very true. So you have to look at that, but I want to keep it a little medium right now, but like you said, Jamal, I'm gonna temper it right now, but it could be a little different.
Look, man, that's fair. I'll do the talking for you when it comes to Jamin Davis. That motherfucker's gonna be it. Oh, you know what I'm saying? I think this is gonna be a little bit more solid than the type of defense that we had last year, and I think Disco kind of brings it up when he gave his response. Right? He said, "Let me just say this." Or say it this way, not just Sweat and Young, but the defense did disappear at times last year, giving up 500 yards against the Bucks. Mentioning Matt Ioannidis is so, hey, Dakota, move, man. Matt Ioannidis is so underrated. He's our best interior pass rusher. So they basically just need to go to the next level. And Disco, I agree, right? The defense in general was the problem against the better offenses, not just the defense. The offense, clearly, we don't need to talk about that. But for me, defensively, I think the biggest and most important factor coming into this year is you're keeping essentially your defensive front, right? A couple of shuffle pieces moving around at the linebacker position, which is fine. You're adding talent. Like, you didn't really lose nobody when you lost Kevin Pierre-Louis. Like, that's a replaceable guy. He's just a guy, as many people will say. However, the biggest part that had moved around was the secondary. Like, you still built up some pieces. You got some rookies in place. You can't necessarily say what the rookies are going to do just yet. However, you lost Ron Darby, but you picked up another talent in William Jackson. So with that being said, we gave up a lot of yards against the Bucks. We gave up. We made certain offenses make it look easy against us plenty of times last year. Rams being one of the things that he mentioned, that Dre just mentioned. The Rams game was not good, but I think this is just one of those areas where, while you're right and everybody needs to take a big step, I think that another year with the same defensive line, you have a retooled secondary, you have a retooled linebacking core, you have potential to not just be around the same level that you had last year, but be even better, more in a statistical standpoint, but also in what you see on film too. Like these guys are more solid against better defense. Better offenses as well. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with
Jamal, I wanted to comment on Disco, talking about Chase Young and Montez Sweat as well. Now, here's something, too, that a lot of people may overlook, and this may not be a big talked about point, but something Chris Cooley said stood out to me last year when he was doing his defensive film reviews of the game. And I think Sheehan asked him, he says, why aren't Chase Young and maybe Montez Sweat's sack numbers up a little higher? And Chris Cooley says that those will go up higher when you get better coverage linebackers. So if Jamin Davis is who we think he is and who he may can be, you may see that leap in Chase Young and Montez Sweat's game. I mean, because honestly, they were everything you want to see in defensive ends last year. They just didn't have the outrageous sack numbers. But when you get coverage linebackers, those guys who take away those quick read options of the quarterbacks, they're going to get to the quarter. Those times when you see them getting to the quarterback, but they don't actually get home, they're going to get home now when the quick options are taken away from the quarterback. When their first reads are taken away, that's when you're going to see the numbers for Chase Young and Montez Sweat sack numbers go up. And I think that leap is going to depend a lot on the ability of the line. And not just to say, James, I don't want to put all the pressure on Jamin Davis because it's two other linebackers that's going to be lined up next to him. Yeah. But if you get better play out of those guys, you're going to see an even bigger leap in Chase Young and Montez Sweat's game.
Hey, I do not disagree. But Disco, let's talk offense here, right? And Dre, so the shit that you see in social media, I actually, if you had a quote of the week too before we even get started, because I kind of already talked about mine in the midst of this conversation, so I don't even have to talk about mine. But if you had a quote of the week, obviously Dre, the floor is yours before we transition to the shit we see on social media.
I didn't have a quote of the week this week, even though I was on social media a lot this week just because of the draft. I was paying attention to a lot. I've seen a lot, but no, I didn't have a specific quote that stood out to me this week.
Okay. All right. So the shit we see on social media, Hawks Haven had a post, right? Who is this? This is Mark Tyler of Hawks Haven. Now he posed a question as part of an article that he written. He says, does Washington now have the most dangerous offense in the NFC? And I'm going to ask you flat out what your opinion is. The comments are incredible because obviously the entire NFC East is in the comments having like a motherfucker, you tripping. Like, shut up. Like, they're having a blast in the comments. But where's your head at, Disco? Let us know. I see your question. I'll circle back to that, but let us know where you at with this one, Disco. But do we have the most dangerous offense in the NFC East, Dre?
In the NFC East, I don't know if I'll go that far yet. For me, it depends on how Dak Prescott comes back from his injury with Dallas. I mean, obviously, you got CeeDee Lamb up there still with him. They still have some guys up there in Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, when he feels like playing, he's a guy. And, the Giants are still
when he feels like playing. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's the thing with Ezekiel. You don't know. I mean, because he got his money and, he'll come out, he'll fumble a couple of times. Like, I wasn't scared of Zeke when we played him last year. We pretty much shut Zeke ass down last year. We shut that shit down. But the Giants, you still got to worry about that because you got Saquon Barkley coming back. Daniel Jones is a wild card, but he always beats us. I mean, I don't think we beat Daniel Jones yet.
But not even just Daniel. You mentioned him, Saquon. When Saquon's in the game, he is the one that beats us. When he's playing, he destroys us. Like, I was blessed to have him out last year, and they still beat us, bro. That shit was crazy.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, because that's the thing. And even with the whole NFC East in general, it's like, I think they're going to get better. A lot of people got on the NFC East for being down and weak last year with the records. But I think this year is going to be a lot tougher, and it's going to be tougher on us because we got the first place schedule this year in the NFC East. Plus, I think they tacked on the Bills to our schedule, who was number one in the AFC East. So we got that going against us. But as far as explosive offenses going in the NFC East, it depends on what Ryan Fitzpatrick can bring to the table. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's kind of like the on and off thing, and he may be kind of like a Kirk Cousins as far as what we've seen as Washington fans at the quarterback position. And it's one of those things where he's going to give you the good moments, and then he's going to give you those moments where you're like, what the fuck is he doing? What was that? But that may be what we need right now. As far as that may be the best as what we can do right now at the quarterback position. And it's probably not necessarily a bad thing. Now, as far as is it going to be a 11-12 win thing, then that's to be determined. But I think maybe more in the 9-10 win range, that could be a thing. But as far as explosive offense, like I said, you still have the Giants, coming off of injuries, and Cowboys coming off of injuries. I don't know if I'm ready to put us at most explosive offense yet until I see how everything comes together, because quarterback is obviously the big question with us.
Hey, y'all heard the man, Dre. He said verbatim, we kind of need a guy like who he described Kirk Cousins as, comparing him to Fitzpatrick. So
that's the best we can do right now.
Yeah, for sure. That just means he wants Kirk Cousins back, y'all. So make sure that y'all, when y'all are listening to this, share it on Twitter that Dre said he wanted Kirk Cousins back on the Washington football team. All right, we can move on. But look, I truly really do agree with this aspect of your point, right? When you mention everybody. And I think a lot of people aren't. Now, I have heard bad reviews on the Cowboys draft, but I don't know. I don't even know what that means yet, because like everybody has opinions, and I need to research further than that. I didn't care what the Cowboys did to like from rounds 1 through 7. But I think the point here is that you said everybody in the NFC East were building to something, and I think that is the thing that a lot of people aren't really realizing. Sure, Washington had a really good draft, but Washington fans aren't taking into account the work that Philadelphia did to get better on offense, the work that the Giants did to get better on offense, and the work that Dallas did to get better on defense. Their first 6 picks were all defensive players. And they got 2 of the top tier players in Jabril Cox and Micah Parsons at the linebacker spot. And I don't think people are taking into account like how much better that NFC East got in general. With that being said, in terms of offenses, think about this. How the hell you gonna be the best offense in the division? You can't even run the fucking football. Washington last year, first off, the passing game, we already know the story behind that. Too many quarterbacks. And when you had a competent quarterback in there, it looked okay, but it still wasn't like top tier numbers, top 10 type of numbers. However, the run game was still just as bad or just as hit and miss as it was with the passing game. So you're going into 2021 and you're thinking that the Washington football team's offense is going to be the best one in the NFC East. I don't. It's hard for me to mess with that because there's so many things that's unproven, and we're jumping the gun based on the additions that they took. But if you think of the offensive line, they added a rookie, and then they traded for Eric Flowers. We don't know what the situation is going to be like there, right? But at the same time, these guys have been here before. Excuse me, the other guys that's on the roster, they played here a year ago, and this is like a wait and see moment right now. Anyone who's jumping the gun and saying that these guys are going to be the best team, the best offense in the NFC East, and you're overlooking the Dallas Cowboys, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I think you tripping. I think you are fucking tripping.
So Jamal, what you're telling me is that you haven't bought the Jared Patterson jersey yet, the undrafted free agents jersey?
Hell no, I ain't buy it yet. But But I am a fan of my boy, bro. I've been looking at him for a minute.
Well, he's PG County.
Exactly. You already hit.
PG County.
Yep.
That's home.
Yep. That's my man.
Yeah.
So I've been looking at him for a minute, but absolutely not, man. And I feel I do. Draft. I'll put it this way, Dre. Draft is the time in the NFL community where every team's fan base is rejuvenated and revigorated, and they're freshly optimistic again. And I don't want to, make it seem like, and truth be told, I would tell you, Mark Tyler probably didn't even think that they were the best offense in the NFC East. But he did raise the question. And I think this is just something where you have to temper. This is the moment where you can temper your expectations, because when you start jumping the gun because of certain players that you added versus players that was already on the roster. For example, Dak Prescott, when he's healthy, he's a top 10 quarterback. And then you got Ezekiel Elliott, like you said, who's hit and miss. But at the same time, I personally think that man, he is still a dog. He had a bad year. That's where I think he's at. But then you're talking about Amari Cooper.
Man, fuck Zeke.
Hey, I love the energy. I love it. And I hate when he plays
Barber,
well against
Marion Barber part 2. He done. That nigga done.
Marion Barber. Hey, that is an interesting name to bring up at this point, because when he went from Dallas to fucking Chicago, it was a wrap. He just couldn't stop fumbling.
It was.
He could not stop fumbling. Okay, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I think that people are making a mistake if you think that Washington's offense right now, because you're basing it on players that was drafted. You're not basing it on players that was already here. If you think that they're better than what the Dallas Cowboys offense brings to the table when they're healthy and a top 10 quarterback, which Washington doesn't have, just making a mistake in my opinion. That's all. That's where I'm at with it, man.
But no, I mean, Jamal, I agree with you in the sense, like I said, I'm not ready to anoint us as the best at anything in this division right now, because I do feel like everyone in this, well, I don't know about the Eagles, but I'm still not sold on the Eagles. But I feel like as far as between Washington, New York, and the Cowboys, everyone has gotten better. I don't know if significantly better, but I feel like everyone has gotten better in a sense. And like, honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you. The Giants' defense kind of scares me. They got a secondary. They have a secondary. I think they definitely by far have the best secondary in the division, no question.
Hey,
so that's a team you have to watch for. Yeah, and like at the end of the day, I just think I see a 3-team race for this division league. I don't see a clear-cut favorite between Dallas, Washington, and the Giants when it comes to division race.
That is fair. Okay. All right. So some of the conversation that was going on between Disco and my boy Jared, they were talking about Landon Collins, right? So Disco asked, do you think Landon Collins gets a bad rap? He thinks that everyone was learning and struggling on this defense early on. But Jared responded and mentioned that he thinks the main issues leads to the bad rap is stemming from his contract. He plays way below his contract value. At that price point, we are paying him and expecting him to make those big plays or impacts more than he is. And I guess the comment obviously stemming with Landon Collins. I personally think that Jared, you bring the best point out there is it don't matter. it don't matter what the hell Landon Collins is talking about. He's getting adjusted with. You are in year 3 of that contract, and your first 2 years was not good to you. And you're getting paid top dollar to perform a particular way, and you are struggling mightily. There's a reason why Landon Collins is being talked about in terms of trade bait, or simply, well, not being cut, but they were talking about position switches, but not necessarily getting cut. Like they're trying to find ways to make him fit in this defense, and that's for a reason, and it's because this motherfucker is struggling. So Dre, where are you at with the Landon Collins situation? Do you think he gets a bad rep?
No. And when you make that much money, there's expectations that come with that salary. That's the problem. So I don't think you get a bad rep. And the thing is, with Landon Collins, the problem is he's never been a great coverage safety. You know, he's a box safety, and that's where he gets his rep at here. As you know, he's bad at coverage here. But here's what I see with Ron Rivera and Stafford, what they're trying to do with Landon. They're saying, okay, we have a guy better than you at the position that you would normally play, which is Cam Carroll. Cam Carroll did what we wanted Landon Collins to do for his money. But obviously with Landon Collins coming back, you're not coming back and taking Cam Carroll's spot. So we have to now this is why I believe Ron and them are doing what they're doing. Because Landon Collins is still a talented player. He's just not a coverage safety. He can still do he can attack gaps, he can tackle well, he can go after the ball. So they're saying we want to probably bring you in more, maybe as a hybrid type of player. Now I don't know, you know, how Landon feels about that, but I've heard he's pretty much shunned the idea of it. But I don't think he gets a bad rep for the money he makes. I believe he's a guy that Bruce Allen looked at when they were ready to sign him and said, "Oh, we'll just throw him the bag because he's a safety and he likes Sean Taylor." I mean, that's all you had to do.
Yeah.
If you're a safety and you like Sean Taylor, you idolize Sean Taylor. This is Bruce Allen and tradition and that staff. They
How
love
much you
that
want?
shit.
$200 million? All right, bet. I got you. $200 million.
Yeah, you know, hey,
on,
we got you. We'll throw you the bag, you know. But as far as like now he's coming back. Now, the fans are looking at Landon some kind of way because they're like, okay, Landon, we paid you over $80 million. This is from the fan perspective. The fans expected something different of Landon. The fans expected to see Cam Curl type of production on a consistent basis from Landon Collins. Now, if you would have got that from Landon Collins playing that box safety position, you wouldn't see the vitriol from fans that you see towards Landon right now. So now, Ron Rivera and them are looking at it as saying, okay, we still have to pay this guy money. Where can we put this guy on the field? We have to be able to find something for him to do for the money he's making. No one wants to bench a guy or just have him sitting there watching the game from the sideline making the money that Landon makes. And like I said, Landon has talent. So he may not be the best linebacker or that may not be best suited for him. But right now for this team, that's the only place that you could think of where you could put him because you're not going to put him at free safety. You're not going to start him over Cam Curl. So what are you going to do? You have to find somewhere on that field for Landon to work. Now, if it was up to me, I would look at Landon as what I wanted Sewell Cravens to be when we drafted him that year. I would say, okay, Landon, you're going to play the Sewell Cravens role. Now, you may be mad about that or whatever, but the fact of the matter is we have a guy named Cam Curl that just came in and he did what he did. We're not unseating him. You're going to have to play a role that, I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to tell him he's playing a Sewell Cravens role, but from a fan's perspective, this is how I think that would be the most successful role for him is putting him closer to the line of scrimmage.
Bro, you said it best, bro. You said Landon Collins is being expected to play like how Cam Curl, or he should be playing like how Cam Curl was playing in 2020. Like, I mean, I clearly butchered your actual quote, but like that is really the end all be all when you have a person who nobody knows, bruh. Like essentially, like in a collective aspect, like the majority, nobody knows Cameron Curl when he comes onto the field, and all of a sudden he's doing everything. Like the fundamentals is there. He's sound in coverage. He can cover the slots. He can cover a tight end if you need him to, and he makes tackles at the line of scrimmage, bruh. When you have somebody in here who is essentially playing the same role that Landon Collins is playing, but he's actually productive, you're like, bruh, what the fuck are we paying him for? What are we paying him for? And I think that's the most important thing when it comes to this conversation. Jared mentioned it. You mentioned it in a different way. He mentioned the money aspect, and you're mentioning he's playing. Cam Curl is playing what is looking like what Landon Collins is supposed to look like. That's what it really comes down to with him. I don't think he's getting a bad rap at all. I ain't gonna lie to you. He's getting exactly what he deserves in terms of his criticism. Injury aside, he wasn't playing good before his injury. And even if it was a learning curve in your opinion, Disco, I just disagree because the learning curve shouldn't have took that long. He even said in the offseason, leading up to the season, that this is something that he wanted to play in. The defensive coaches are allowing him to do whatever it is that, that he wanted, in terms of like where he plays best and where he feels he plays best. He was given that luxury to do whatever, in that regard. And he still, like, when the season came around, he wasn't ready. He clearly looked out of place. He wasn't making his tackles. He wasn't really that good in coverage. It was a lot of things that went wrong, man. And I think that's the sum of it when it comes to Landon, is the money and Cam Curl really outplaying him.
Jamal, I will say, what was I can't remember the game. Was it the Cowboys? I think it was the Cowboys game when Landon got injured. And that was the best game I had seen Landon Collins play up until that point. He got injured in that game. Yep. But in that game, if you saw where they played him, they were playing him he was coming up to the line of scrimmage. He was coming next to Chase and Montez in that game. And he was playing so close and that's where I see him being effective. Now, he may not be a 3-down player, but that's fine. But at this point, you just want to see where you can get any use out of the guy. And I think that's where the most effectiveness you can get out of him is playing closer to that line of scrimmage and closer to the ball.
Yeah, I agree. And Jared mentioned, he said a few things, but he mentioned that Curl is playing like he got a chip on the shoulder, while Collins seems to think he's untouchable. And I think that's fair. I think when you say that, and the first thing that pops into my head is the linebacker quote saying that he's just refusing to switch from safety to linebacker. In his opinion, when Ron spoke on that, he mentioned that he emphasized that was Landon's opinion, which he's entitled to have, but it's not the coach's opinion. He can think that he's. I'm not saying that he is, but he can think that he's untouchable if that's how he feels. However, at the end of the day, you're entering year 3. You have to perform. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, man. At all. Okay. The shit we see on social media is kind of crazy how we transition back to the defense, but I love it. I love it. So going into the Washington Spotlight, and we can close out after this. We got 3 topics, man. Before I go into mine, did you have anything for the Washington Football Spotlight?
Washington Football Spotlight this week? No, I didn't.
All right. Don't worry. I got it covered. Rivera, the first one is his mentioning of trading up in the draft. He spoke on NFL Network a couple days ago, and what he said verbatim on possibly trading up. He said that there was a possibility. It was a big conversation. We had talking about the quarterback position specifically. We also talked about the opportunity to shore up other things. We felt strongly holding to fill out the rest of the needs. So when I read this, and clearly I asked Chris Russell, about the opportunity too. It's easier to say things now that the draft is passed, but I'm still skeptical that the opportunity that he had, it just wasn't there for him to take that quarterback. Like he's clearly saying that he talked about trading up for the quarterback position. It was a big conversation. But I think that just the opportunity just wasn't there. He wanted to do it. I just don't think it was there. And I also think that while they like Ryan Fitzpatrick, they are still looking for that guy, which they should. But it's like, I don't know, like, you got to settle on someone, man.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because, I talk to people, and I had a few conversations with some people who give me good information. And I know that a few people in the organization, which a lot of fans don't like, but they like Mac Jones, man. And if New England wouldn't have drafted Mac Jones, that's who they would have probably went and got. They would have probably been the team that ended up drafting Mac Jones if it wasn't for New England. But I'm glad that they didn't move up to, go up and give up too much to get a quarterback. I know a lot of fans were saying, oh, well, you could have gave what Chicago gave for Justin Fields. But maybe they didn't like Justin Fields as much as Chicago did. Every team likes a guy, the way they like a guy. They like guys more than some other guys, more than some other teams may like a guy. So, I know some people say, oh, well, they could have got Justin Fields. Well, did you ever think they didn't like Justin Fields as much as Chicago did? You know what I'm saying? Every team evaluates players differently for their scheme. It's all about scheme, system, and just what you see in a guy. And Justin Fields, I kind of agree with Chris Russell as he was talking about earlier on the show, where he thought, Trey Lance was a better prospect than Justin Fields. I agree. I didn't see that much in Justin Fields' tape to say, go up and get the guy, but in this draft and the quarterback hungry draft, people are thinking that way. They're looking at it that way. But I'm glad they stuck to their board. I'm glad we just continue building this roster, because right now, and we talked about this earlier, Jamal. You asked me, you said, what do you think about this team? Now, I think if they reach their potential as far as the draft picks that they got in this draft, then you got better significantly as a team. If these guys if some of these guys like Jamin Davis live up to their potential, you got significantly better with this team. Now, that means next year you can go out and get your guy. Yeah, and every year, and that's the thing. People always talk about the court. This is what kills me. People talk about the quarterback position as if every year that quarterbacks come out, this is the last year that you're going to be able to get a quarterback. No, next year it's going to be another guy, and it's going to be a guy after that year. I didn't know who Zach Wilson was at the same time at this point in last year. I found out about Zach Wilson in October or November or some point. I think it was October I found out about Zach Wilson. And the first time I watched Zach Wilson, I told somebody, I said, that's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. Somebody told me, nah, he's not, it's not going to translate. I said, okay. I looked at him. I said, that's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. Nah, he's a day 2 guy. Okay, cool. Number 2 pick in the draft. But that's a guy you weren't talking about last year. When you were talking about the quarterbacks from last year, the most you heard was, what I heard was Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance. That's the only 3 I heard. I didn't hear about Mac Jones. I didn't hear about Zach Wilson. So now you have 5 quarterbacks that went in this draft, and 2 of those guys you didn't even hear about last year. Talk about in the first round. So that's what I'm saying. Now, next year, a couple of guys you hear about, Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma. That's 2 guys. Now, Jamal, I'll bet you right now, then these are the 2 guys I hear that are first-round draft picks coming up for next year. And that's all everyone is saying is worth a first-round draft pick right now. I guarantee I will bet money. I will bet some money. I don't want to bet a paycheck. I don't want to lose a paycheck. But I will bet money right now that there will be 2 more guys that emerge as first-round, at least 2 more guys that will emerge as first-round prospects next year that you may not even be talking about right now. So this is every year. Now, I'm getting back to my point is that we're building a roster to the point where we're becoming a team that has less and less needs, where you can go up and you can go get your guy and you can get him next year. So the fact that people are saying, oh, you could have got Justin Fields this year, so what? We didn't get Justin Fields. There will be another Justin Fields or even better next year, and we can go get that guy when we have an even better team to surround that guy with.
So before you bet your house, you know what I'm saying, on next year, just all I'm saying is add Desmond Riddler from Cincinnati, add him to your first round.
He could have been a first round pick.
Yeah, about exactly. Yep, exactly. So you know what I'm saying, just add them out there and then bet the house so you can be right, because it'll happen. That's all I'm saying.
Watch what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. So I think because you said the Trey Lance thing, Justin Fields thing, and Mac Jones thing. I am a firm believer that, and I've said this, like Mac Jones possesses the traits that a lot of NFL teams like that they want. Like he does a lot of things well. Doesn't mean that he does a lot of things great. He is just consistently a good distributor of the football, and he knows how to play the quarterback position. And Trey Lance, for whatever reasons, we didn't get into detail with Chris per se. But for whatever reasons, Trey Lance is more desirable in terms of prospect evaluation and things like that. He has a step up over Justin Fields. I think that they made the right decision. Not in terms of trading up or deciding not to trade up. I do think when it comes to that position in general with this team, you have to play it. You have to play it passive to a degree. If that opportunity didn't come up, which would have or could have been Mac Jones, then outside of that, focus on everything else that you need. And when you stated your opinion on the assessment of the draft in general, Dre, you hit the nail on the head. They had everything in front of them in terms of what they needed out of this draft, and they were able to attain it. And I think that's the most important part of that quarterback opportunity thing. When that is not there, don't force it. Do what you got to do, but playing passive is just not going to be the move moving forward. You can't continue to waste time or allow time to pass because you're not wasting it. You did everything you could this year to a rational degree, and it was smart. Like, it's hard for anybody to disagree with how this draft played out, but you cannot allow time to continue to pass, because next thing you know, you'll be in year 4.5. You're in week 13. You have 5 or 6 wins, and we're talking about, man, them quarterbacks look good in 2024 or 2023. Right. Like, just do not play it passive to that extent. It's okay to let the opportunity pass if it was not right for you this year, but when something stares you in the face and say, hey, bro, this is your time, this is your moment, it makes sense, go, Ron, make that move, talk to whoever you need to talk to, and get it.
Jamal, here's the thing, too, that, Ron's been here 2 years, and a lot of fans I see that I've interacted with over this past week is that they kind of make it seem like he has to have the answer right now. And I don't think that's fair, personally, because if you look at it, his first year he comes in, he's inherited Dwayne Haskins. And this is a guy who, obviously, this is the beginning of a pandemic where you can't look at players like you would normally look at players, and evaluate players other than the only thing he could do with Dwayne Haskins last year was evaluate his previous year film and his work, maybe his workout sessions in the Redskins Park gym or whatever. He couldn't actually see Dwayne Haskins in preseason, in game situations and whatever. And if he would have decided that he didn't want to do anything with Dwayne Haskins last year before they played a football game, he would have been crucified. I mean, he was crucified anyway after he benched him, but he would have been severely crucified if he would have decided, Dwayne Haskins, I'm not dealing with this guy without seeing him step on a football field on my franchise. I don't want to deal with him. So he gave the guy a chance. He didn't go out and he didn't try to address the franchise QB position, as a lot of people always say, we ignore the position. But how can you say Ron has ignored the position when this is his second year and he tried with Matt Stafford, but Matt Stafford didn't want. He wanted to go to LA, which is fair. LA is right now built for more of a championship caliber roster than Washington is, and plus it's LA. It's LA versus Washington, so I get it. And he tried. Ron Rivera and their staff, they tried that, and then the draft. I mean, they just weren't in position to get one of the top attractive QB positions, but. That's 2 years. And like I said, technically for me, that's only 1 year of looking for a franchise quarterback for the Ron Rivera staff. Now, when you start getting to next year, I expect a little bit more aggressiveness and a little bit more pursuit of the position, because now it's like, okay, we really have to answer this position. I've started to build everything around the position. Now I can actually put someone in place to play the position for us. But I can't fault or start putting Ron in a category of everybody else just came through Washington and said he's ignoring the quarterback position, because that's just not fair to him and his staff right now.
100%. And I think that's the part. Like, I did emphasize pre-draft. Like, for me, I'm all like, it would be a mistake if Washington doesn't look at the quarterback position at all in the draft. But you like the whole point of those conversations is you don't know how it's going to play out when the draft happens. And when you see how it played out this year, you can't really be mad that they didn't have a quarterback playing in terms of the draft. Like, we know what they did before with the Stafford thing, as you highlighted, and clearly there's an attempt there. You can't force Matt Stafford to come to Washington if he's given the options and he chooses another option. That's not on Washington. They tried and they offered a better deal than the Rams. But in terms of the draft, if the opportunity doesn't present itself, it is what it is, man. So I'm not tripping. And I think a lot of people out there who are. Now, Dre, I seen you, man, and I salute you for the shit that you go through with the fan base sometimes on social media, because they come at your neck, man. And I feel for you, bro. You handle it well. You handle it well, man. But yes, they talk crazy and get frustrated and take it out on people who just don't have the same opinion as them. That's fucking stupid. I learned my lesson a long time ago. It's like, bro, it's not worth your time. But clearly, some people just love going at your neck, man. In terms of like just they're frustrating. I'm not saying I did that. I'm just saying like that's what people do. That's what people do on social media. Like, they take their frustrations out when you don't have the same opinion as them. Like, nigga, you stupid. Nah, it don't work like that. So salute to Dre. That's a sidebar. But the point is, these guys, if you're looking at reasons for why Ron didn't take a quarterback, it has a lot to do with how things played out, man. And let him focus on it next year. But just, Ron, if you find a way to listen to this, you can't just continue to be aggressive within your means moving forward. Just don't find a way to be passive if you happen to have success this year. You guys need a fucking quarterback. You need one. Absolutely. One. Absolutely. All right. So before we get up out of here, right? Disco raised a good question that kind of stemmed or seeps into my last what is this? Washington football team spotlight. But actually it doesn't, but it was actually a new topic. So I'm going to read what Disco said, but before I do that, I'll read a couple more comments. Jared mentioned, this is off topic, but he saw a Pro Football Focus article that had De'Ami Brown ranked as the third biggest steal of the draft, only behind Fields and JOK. And he has just what's so special about him, because all he sees on his tape is the 4.4 speed and the deep routes. And I think that's a really good question. And Jared, Ron Rivera mentioned that his playmaking potential was probably the biggest thing, and the fact that he can make plays downfield and contested catches, because he did acknowledge the fact that De'Ami is a receiver who has a lot of concentration drops. He can drop the easy passes, and that'll frustrate you. But you're looking at a guy who can make the highlight catches and tough contested catches, and that's something that they're looking forward to, and they're hoping that because all concentration drops. Hey, remember, I'm a professional flag football receiver. I can tell you this. All right. So when it comes to drops, these specifically, you either have hands or you don't. Concentration drops can be fixed. That's something that has very little to do with your ability to catch a football. You can catch a football, but that's what they're talking about when it comes to Ron Rivera and De'Ami Brown. He has something that they see. They have something that they see in De'Ami that can work for this offense. And you mentioned it. I remember this conversation, Dre. I don't know if it was it Twitter or something, or maybe it was this platform. But something where you're allowing Terry and Curtis to do their thing, but you have De'Ami, who, while he is a quote unquote one trick pony now, he is that person who can be designated for certain routes, while the actual route runners can work the other levels of the field.
Well, no, first off, I just looked at Jay Grizz's comment as well. And I want to say, Jay Grizz, I was a big Josh Doctson fan. I feel like I say this almost every week. But you said he gives you Josh Doctson vibes, and I have to disagree wholeheartedly. Because if you looked at Josh Doctson's tape at TCU, Josh Doctson was a jump ball, contested catch guy, where he never really got separation. You didn't see the separation much on Josh Doctson's tape. It was him just jumping up and grabbing the ball from a defender. Whereas Dyami Brown, his tape is all separation. Like most of the catches I've seen Dyami Brown make in his highlight films is him 5 yards away from his defender. I mean, he's just blowing past guys and he's killing guys. But that's something that he will bring differently to the scene. I mean, Terry's a burner and Curtis Samuel has speed, but Terry's more of the route running technician. I see him as, whereas Curtis Samuel's a guy who's going to be, he's a run after catch guy. You can give him the ball in the backfield. He can do things like that. Now, Dyami, he's going to give you that element, Jamal, that you were just talking about. I think he's the top off the defense guy that we were missing. We didn't have that guy. No, we went out and we had guys like Robert Foster, Jeff Bedet, guys who were nothing. They were practice squad guys who couldn't really get on the field, and their game just didn't translate to an NFL field. But this is what you want out of Dyami. Dyami is going to be the top off the back of the defense guy, while you want your Terry and your Curtis Samuel, they're going to eat underneath. So as far as the Josh Doctson comparison, I just think that's I like I said, I 100% disagree, because Josh Doctson was a straight physical. Well, he was supposed to be a physical receiver, and he was more of the jump ball and I'm gonna grab it from you type of guy versus the separation. Like, I never really seen Josh Doctson take separation from a defender too much.
Y'all heard what he said, right? I don't have to repeat anything. I 100% concur with where Dre is at. So with that being said, there was this is the last thing, and we'll get up out of here, right? This is the comment from Disco, and then we can get into the question. We can do a scale of 1 to 10, right? So he mentioned NFL's power rankings. It dropped from Washington football team from 19 to 23rd. Bears moved up to 19 from 24, and ranks Dallas and Giants ahead of Washington, and Eagles just one spot behind. They don't mean much, and I was gonna emphasize that part. Disco, these don't mean much at all right now, but he feels it's disrespectful. There is a quote or article from Sam Monson in Pro Football Focus that the Washington football team is building a contender despite no elite quarterback. Clearly two different spectrums in terms of the perception of this team. And he goes into detail as to, why. Obviously, you can find his work on Pro Football Focus. Look up Sam Monson and the Washington football team's Super Bowl contender article, and you'll be able to find it. But he goes into detail there. My question to you as we close out, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at with the Washington football team's contention capabilities, I guess, for 2021 and 2022? Whether it's this year or next year, we're combining the 2 years. Where are you at in terms of contention, scale of 1 to 10? Are they able to compete or what?
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned the power rankings. The disparity is funny because I think it was PFF that had Washington ranked at the 8th best roster, and then you got this power rankings thing that puts us at number 24. Now that says to me, if you expect us to be the 24th best team, then we are bottom of the barrel. You're talking about maybe 5 wins max this year, and I don't see it. I mean, I look at we got 7 wins last year. It was whatever, people talk about the division, but I look at the roster as getting better. So I don't necessarily see how you can, and then especially for that power rankings you were talking about, they were 19th before the draft. And then after the draft, they go to 24. And that literally doesn't make sense to me. I saw where he moved Chicago up because of Justin Fields. I mean, does he really think Justin Fields comes as a rookie and makes Chicago that much better, of a team? I don't see it. I mean, I disagree, but it's power rankings. It's all subjective. This is April or May. We're in May now. We're not even in August. We're not even in training camp or anything. So this is all opinion, but I think this is just the Washington media bias that usually happens, which is totally warranted from the Snyder era. But as far as my opinion on the scale of 1 to 10, especially, I think that I think we're a better team than we were last year. I think this roster has gotten better. Like, we were 3-13 after the 2019 season. We were 7-9 last year. Like, I think the roster got better. Like, if you asked me this time last year about this roster, I would have probably had us around 5 to 6 wins at maximum for the 2020 season. And then I'm looking at how they performed, and some guys surprisingly outperformed some of the expectations. And then you added what you added this off season. I think the team got better, man. Like, I think they are. You're looking at at least, in my opinion, I normally don't do the record predictions, but I would probably say right now, and I think this at least a 9-win roster right now. I think this is a 9-win roster.
Okay, 9-win. All right, scale of 1 to 10 for me, man. I'll keep it brief. I am going, in terms of contention, I am probably going. I'm around a 6. I'm giving them a 6. So that's a high percent chance in terms of just in general, like their ability to compete these next couple of years. I essentially think that Fitzpatrick is a stepping stone in terms of being able to take us to the next level. But then you're going into next year hoping that or expecting that there will be another presence there at the quarterback position that I wouldn't say elevate, but maintains the level of play that Fitzpatrick had for this year. This year, I'm expecting. I'm actually in that same range. 9 wins, 8 to 9 wins. So you're either 500 or just below 500 this year with the 17 game season. But I'm looking around that 8 or 9 win range. But I think that their max, their ceiling can get as high as 11 wins. But that has a lot to. There's plenty of things that has to unfold on their end, especially, and we can discuss that when the season gets closer. But I'm looking at a 6 out of 10. And I don't think that they're the 24th best team according to NFL Network power rankings. I think that's far from the truth. But it's a situation where you're building the right way. And I think that there's not going to be any significant drop off, if there is one, from last year to this year. I think things kind of remain afloat, if not gets better. But it's going to be hard for it to not get better with the continuity and type of people that's being brought back. It's not like 1,000 different players being brought in that's replacing core players. Core players are still here. So that's where I'm at with it, man. 6 out of 10. There's a hot chance, and I kind of feel bad for Ryan Kerrigan in that regard, because he may not be able to witness the turnaround, even though he's been here for the bad days. And I hate to bring Kerrigan up. It's just more so that he was on our mind because I saw a recent article that he may not be completely out of the picture. But never know, man. They're turning things around here in Washington, and it sucks for a lot of the long-timers who's been here for a long time, especially like Nick Sundberg, who's not here no more. They drafted his replacement. These are guys that's been here for a while, and they just won't be able to see the hard work and stuff that they endured, kind of come to fruition with the roster and stuff that Rivera is being built around here, man. So that's where I'm at with it. 6 out of 10, boss.
All right. Sounds good, man.
Yes, sir. So before we get up out of here, man, I want to appreciate the chat. Appreciate everybody who tuned in live to the Trap or Dive podcast. Thank you to Chris Russell. Appreciate AJ for checking in. I know he had to dip early. And then obviously Dre who stayed through for the whole show with me. I will be back tomorrow for the All 32 side of the Trap or Dive pod with the fellas. And then Washington football is next week. We do got some guests lined up. But we will cross that bridge when everything becomes official. So yeah, appreciate everybody who tuned in live. The podcast version will be out tomorrow. If you're looking at this is Tuesday night we're recording. The podcast will be out tomorrow. YouTube will be out tomorrow. The highlights and stuff like that will be published as well. So check them out if you want the streamlined version of everything. And we will catch you all next time. Peace, and thank you for listening and watching.